Good morning, Internet. My name is P.T. Hilton, and this is my to-be-read list for November 2014. I just wanted to point out that this is coffee, I don't want you to think it was like liquefied M&Ms in here or something weird like that. Okay, so let's talk about the books I'm going to read in November. The first book I actually want to talk about is one that's new out that I'm not actually going to do an official review of. That book is called Fool's Ride by John L. Monk. It's the sequel to his book, Kick. The reason I'm not going to do an official review for this is because I'm actually friends with John L. Monk. It's one of those weird things, though, where I'm not going to do a review because he's my friend, but also it's genuinely the book I'm probably most excited about right now, so I don't want to not mention it. It's not one of those where we've been like friends since high school and he wrote this book and now I feel like I have to push it. The way we became friends was that I was a fan of his writing and his book Kick, so I started commenting on his blog, and eventually when I was going to publish a book I emailed him and asked him questions, and he was really nice, and we kind of became friends as he mentored me through my first couple books. So even though we're friends because I admire his writing. His book Kick is basically the story of this guy Dan Jenkins, who he dies prior to the beginning of the first book, and rather than going to some afterlife or something like that, he basically hops into the body of killers for a little while. For a period of a couple weeks, he lives in their body, kind of like a quantum leap type thing, where he's in their bodies, and he only has a couple weeks to either bring them to justice or figure out what's going on before they kick and kind of wake up and kick him out of the body, and then he goes on to his next ride in his next body. So it's a really fun series. It's kind of got that quantum leap thing of like he goes into the body and he's suddenly in this weird situation. He's got to figure out what's going on, and also Dan's a really cool character, and John's a great writer. So while I'm not going to do an official review of Fool's Ride, the second book, if you haven't read Kick, the first book, I definitely highly recommend it. So let's talk about the books I'm going to read in November. First of all, a couple that I already am reading. Let the Old Dreams Die by John Ajvide-Lindqvist. Probably didn't say that middle name right. This is a book of short stories by the author of Let the Right One In and Handling the Undead and Harbor and Little Star. I like that writer a lot. This book also contains a short story that's sort of a follow-up to Let the Right One In, and another short story that's kind of a follow-up to Handling the Undead, which I haven't read Handling the Undead yet, so I'm going to skip that short story, but the ones I've read so far are really, really good. He does a great job of setting just this weird mood, and he always has a really cool payoff in his stories. So the next two books I'm going to be reading are the two sequels to Blackbirds by Chuck Wendig, and that is Mockingbird and The Cormorant. So that must be kind of bird, huh? The Cormorant? Anyway, the reason I'm reading these two now is I always felt like I'll get to these books sometime, but I wasn't in too big of a rush to get to them. But I recently heard that these books have been picked up by a new publisher, and they're currently available on Oyster, which is the digital reading service that I use. And since they're going to be picked up by a new publisher, I don't know how long they're going to be on Oyster, so I want to read them before they get taken off there. So I started the first one already, Mockingbird, and it's already better than the first one, Blackbirds. So I'm loving it so far. So I've only been watching Booktube videos and doing Booktube videos for a little over a month now. I'm kind of a Booktube baby. That kind of sounded weird. I meant to say that I am a Booktube baby. I wasn't trying to say I'm a Booktube baby. I wasn't calling you baby. In my time watching Booktube, I've found that there's a few books that are kind of like the science fiction fantasy Booktube pantheon, right? That seems like every science fiction and fantasy booktuber has read and loves, or at least has an opinion on and has read. Not everyone likes them, I guess. But there's a few of those books that I have not read, and so I'm going to start this month working on my way to reading a few of those so I can have read those, since they're used as kind of a point of reference on Booktube so much. So I'm going to be reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, which the title of this series kind of weirded me out, because this book I'm getting from my library, and in the library catalog it's actually called Mistborn: The Final Empire, which the word final makes me think it's like the last book in the series, but I think it's the first book. So I'm about to start reading it, so tell me in the comments quick if that is not the first book in the series, please. And I'm also going to read The Lies of Locke Lamore by Scott Lynch. That's right, I've never read any Brandon Sanderson or any Scott Lynch, so I'm going to rectify both those situations this month. Another book that probably could be on that list of Booktube favorites, and that I will also be reading this month, is Red Shirts by John Scalzi. Another author that I've never read that might shock you to your core is I've never read any Philip K. Dick, so I'm going to be reading The Man in the High Castle this month. Finally, the Booktube Reading Buddies group on Goodreads is going to be reading East of Eden by Steinbeck, and I have never read any Steinbeck either, so I'll be reading that. So really, it's a month of reading authors that I haven't read before. Some of these authors I have. Chuck Wendig I have, John Scalzi I have. For the most part, I'm branching out into new territory. So those are the books I'm reading this month. I may not get through them all, but I'm going to try my best. If you have any comments on any of those books, if you've read them or want to prepare me or want to be like, hey dude, don't read that, don't do it, you can leave your comments below. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff. I will talk to you next time. Bye.